work tips doing a roof with a dog leg. What we need to do is carry this roof out as the same width, but it steps in due to groundworks and access through. So I've ran the plate round like it would as it was normally, sitting on a plate. And what we're going to do is on this, we're going to run our rafters up. We're going to put an 8x2 timber, like a pole plate across. So once I've worked it out in my pattern, I will work my 1/3 bird's mouth out, and then that will sit on a piece of timber, which will be an 8x2. And what I've done is, I will start it from back here, so it cantilevers across, so the rafters are holding it down. I've put a double here, which also takes the post to go under the ridge, but I've put one at the end, so it takes the weight of the end, and also that will help out with the rest of the collars with the tie or feeding. So it's good work tips when you're going to try and tie in a roof into a dogleg section. Good work tips when you do your hips. I cut a timber for my upstand of my rafter. So that'd be my plumb cut up. Now when I do it on a corner, I want that to touch the top of my plate. So that's going to be the same upstand as my rafter all the way around, and I want my hip to be like that. So I'll mark the centre of that timber that I've cut as my upstand, and that has to touch the corner of my plate. And I'll put a square in there of 45, and I'll hold that and I'll adjust that until it fits so it's 45, and my line is going to my corner. And then what I do is I mark that both sides, and I'll move it back until it touches 2 inches either side, the thickness of my timber, and then I'll cut that off square. And when I've cut that off, I'll put my block in like so. I will put my line up, down. Now I can get my angles from there. Right, that's how I do my hips. But a good little work tip is where I see a lot of people measuring to this centre point. But when you measure to the centre point, the hips always stick higher and they stick up. So like in the old days, they used to bevel them. So what you've got to do is move that down until it touches. And that's your point you measure from, is the edge where the timber touches, like the side of that hip. And that's your measurement. And I'd measure from that point where it touches on the rafters down to the edge of my timber upstand, which will be to the top of the timber, and measured down. Fit nicely like that. Good work tips when I put my hips in. Once I've got my hips in, I'll pin a line all the way round so I can play around with my hips and play around with them. If I put a pin in here, run my line through, I can see where that's got to go in position for my line to touch my rafters. And same here, especially on smaller ones, because you want to know if there's any dips and bows. So if you do it on 3 corners, you can play around with each hip and adjust them very, very slightly so you can get the line as best as you can to work all the way around. So when you do cut your facia and soffit and the roof has come to the roof, all the rafters are all in line and they work well and work well with hips. Good work tips. Good work tips on a hand cut roof. We've got a dog leg in the roof, and what we want to do is carry this on as normal as the plate and think of a way that's going to be structurally supportive. So what we've done is we've done a pole plate which is an 8x2 all the way through, and we've done it as far back as possible so it cantilevers. We've got a double in here which picks up the post, which takes up the ridge. Everything's bolted like in an A-frame, so that way everything's tied in nicely and it's structurally sound. But also on the pole plate, we carry it right through to the end, and we've got a double here so it takes the weight. And then on the last little bit, I've put a 45 on the 8x2, so the hip is actually notched over, so we've got a little bird's mouth, so everything's tied in really well. Good work tips, hope it helps. Good work tips, putting purlings in and doing a hand cut roof. I've worked out a halfway point for where the purlings are going to go. Now, I cut my bird's mouth and push my purlings to that point, just for makes it easier than trying to double bird's mouth and get everything right. So, to get my 1/3 mouth in my rafter, and I hold my purling piece of timber, and I slide that up the battens, in line with the battens of the existing roof, until I hit the mortar joint. And once I've got the mortar joint, I know where that's going to go. So I'll cut out from my double bird's mouth. And once that's all in, we know where that's going. And it's easy to cut along the mortar line, brittle bricks. I will then place an offcut once my rafter's in. Use the square from the point there. I will move that over until it touches. And then what I do is, I square the back and I'll play around that with this. Doesn't matter if it's cut a mil higher, because I could always put slate underneath it and pack it up to suit. The point is to know the position of that 1/3 bird's mouth and get the position right. So once I get a pair in, both sides, it's all structurally supported. I lift it up, prop it up both ends, and that's done. Good work tips for getting purlings in the right position. Good work tips on roofs. When I'm doing facia and soffit, a few things to think about. If I've got to get an extra little jack rafter in, I can set them back a little bit further back from what they need to be, so I can get a bird's mouth for a little bit of stability, but really they need to be over a bit further to pick up the end of the fascia. So what I'll do is, I'll cut my feet back 20 mil, and I'll get a bit of 4x1 or 6x1 or something like that. So one, it'll take the whip out here, and I'll get a nice fascia straight line. It'll also pick up tiny little jack rafter where it needs to go to pick up the batten for the roofer. But another reason I like it is because it's strong. When the roofer steps up on it, it's not going to push them fascia down. It's not going to bend the end of them pins. And another good thing that I like is, you can put your nails wherever you like along there, and you get nice spaces between them. So there's a few good little work tips there for your facial soffit, just to make them straight, make them neat, get nice spacings for the fixings. Okay, we've got a couple of purlings in there to take the weight, the 4-inch timber. We've run the joists the other direction because they're shorter spans, so it's another good reason to bird's mouth them over. Collars at the top to tie it all in. Put a triple here to pick up the feet. That way we can also run a little post up to pick up the ridge, as well as tying it in with the main roof. Got the pole plate here. Goes over a couple of doubles, double at the end to pick it up. Bird's mouth with the hip over it. A little post underneath to pick the ridge on the double. Noggins in the valleys. The roofer's battens.